Hey guys, so something a little different for this channel. I am a massive fan of drop crotch joggers. I've got so many pairs, it is unreal. I'm a bit obsessed. I just think they're really cool. And it kind of looks like joggers are going to be a pretty big deal into autumn winter of 2014-15. So with that in mind, I'm going to attempt to make my own harem or drop crotch joggers or pants. So I'm going to attempt to make a full length version and a short version, not in the same way. So basically what you'll need is a very cheap pair of joggers, or two in my case. Mine are pretty ill-fitting, to be honest, but they're from Primark. They were £6 each. So yeah, I mean, you can kind of mess around with that sort of thing and you're not going to feel too upset about cutting them up if it goes wrong. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so the first option is the much easier way of doing this. We're going to create trousers or pants. So the first thing you need to do is put them on inside out, and then you're simply going to take normal pins. You can actually use needles or whatever else you might have to hand, but normal sewing pins. And all you're actually going to do is take the trouser or the pant, and you're actually going to pin on the inside leg to create a tight leg all the way up. So what you end up with is a lot of excess material all the way up. So what you should end up with is something as wonderful as what I'm wearing right now when you're done. So what I've done is I've stitched up the mark. I've actually had to do it slightly wider to give myself a bit more ankle room, but basically it's a very tight fit to the leg all the way up to the kind of crotch area. I've done it with a machine, or rather I've had some help, but you can do this also by hand. So much you know that they fit, and you can get your ankles through the bottom. All you're going to do is take them off, cut the excess material off, turn them inside out, and you're done. So here's the finished look, guys. I've just teamed up with a cheeky little scuba cropped t-shirt and a little bit of tartan, which I think is going to be still pretty big over the winter. But yeah, back to the trousers. As you can see, it's a skinny leg all the way to the bottom, but with a bit more volume at the top. It's definitely the more wearable and less dramatic way of wearing drop crotch or harem trousers. But yeah, it's really comfy and it's just really nice. And it's changed a really cheap pair of joggers for me. It's made them so much less stay at home and more kind of fashionable, and I can definitely wear them out now, which is absolutely great. So the other option is slightly more complicated, but what we're going to do is make a harem short, or like a gym short type thing. What we're going to basically do is we're going to cut the trouser just below the knee, leaving enough space to embed some elastic, so we'll fold it under and stitch the elastic in, and we're going to use the remainder to create some panels in the crotch area to create the drop. So the next thing you're going to do, which I've already done, is to put the trousers on, and then to find the bottom of your knee and then add about 2 centimeters or an inch and pop a pin in. It's just a reference point to make a cut, and the 2 centimeters or the inch are so that we can fold up and create a seam around the elastic when we put that in at the point of the knee. If you do buy a thicker elastic, you may want to leave just a bit more, as it will give you a bit more fabric to work with when you fold up. So the next thing we're going to do is actually cut the trousers or the pants. So we've used, this is a little bit wonky, but we've obviously got our reference points. We're going to cut it at a right angle to the actual trouser. So I would definitely suggest to line your seams up properly first, so you get a nice, consistent and straight cut. Just take a pair of scissors. Doesn't have to be sewing scissors, but that would be quite good. And you're just going to literally cut straight across. I then suggest to fold the trouser and use the one you've already cut to create your other cut, so that it's all consistent as much as it can be. It's pretty accurate to me. You might at this point want to try them on, make sure that they fit, but generally speaking, that's what you should have now. At this point, we're going to just work out how we're going to use the remaining fabric to create an extra piece within the trouser to create a drop crotch. It might be slightly different depending on the cut of the original trouser. What you'll need to end up with is 4 triangles. And what I mean by that is that there will need to be 4 pieces that come down from the centre and about halfway across this point here, which will then stitch together. You may find you can actually use the existing seam within the trouser to create a triangle, so I'm going to give it a go now. So I'm just having a play with it now. I think this might just about work. We can actually use the seam along the bottom and re-seam along here on the crotch. Okay, so the next thing we'll do, now that we've worked this out, and we've got 2 pieces to use, is we'll just put them side by side. And what we really need to do is cut this, but leaving plenty of space to actually sew with. So we're just going to lift and fold with that again, about 1 inch, all the way up. A cut. And again, just for symmetry, we're going to make sure that we make these the same. One thing I will say is make sure that when you're kind of templating or working out the piece, that you keep the trouser open right out, so you don't get awkward legs when you can't open your legs after. Make sure you keep them spaced out as much as possible so that your piece then will move with the legs once you've put it all together. So I'm just going to use this again as a template so that we've got matching pieces everywhere. So this will create our drop crotch in the centre, like that, once we put it together. So the only thing that's left to do is to actually open up this part of the trouser, ready to then re-stitch it together with the new pieces in. This could be a bit fiddly. There are a couple of ways you can go about it. The first thing I would do would be to turn the trousers inside out, so you can have a look at your seam. One thing you can do is unpick them, but that can be quite a fiddly process and it can be quite difficult. So the other thing you can do is to actually cut the seam out. As long as you know you have enough fabric to then fold over, that's something that's relatively easy to do. And all you're going to do is take your scissors and you're going to cut right along the very edge of the seam. So the seam is this part here. Not sure if the camera's going to show that. And what you need to do is cut just below it. Now I have the fortune of having a wonderful grandma who's also a seamstress, so she'll be helping me with these final stages. I'm not actually going to cut it just yet, just because I need to get some advice from her about whether it'd be best to cut it or if we need that tiny bit of extra fabric to actually make the joins. And here's the completed other version. Now this is stylistically more like a traditional harem Asian trouser or pant versus a more street drop crotch jogger. So as you can see, there's a lot more volume in the centre, and it's probably a slightly more daring way to do this. But I love them and I think they're so comfortable, and they do look like a big sack, but that's kind of the look I'm going for with them. I've teamed them up with a mesh t-shirt, which is on that whole sportswear trend for me, but it's really simple, no kind of big detailing on it. It's really classic, and it's stuck in an off-white and some high tops, and just add a splash of colour. I don't know if you can quite see it, but I've chucked in a mustard beanie. Loving a bit of mustard at the moment, and it just adds a bit of flair to the quite monochrome outfit. So yeah, back to the trousers, which I guess are the point of this tutorial. They are really cool. They are very voluminous compared to the other way of doing this. And obviously they're a short, so as we go into winter in, well, at least in the UK, they'll maybe be slightly less wearable on a day-to-day basis. I'm thinking more about wearing them for exercise or for lounging around at home, but I will definitely wear them out if the temperature is right for it. But yeah, I think they've been a big success. So as you can see, construction wise, the two triangles have created the extra volume in the middle, and we've had some elastic put in. Now these do require a lot more construction and a bit of a better knowledge of sewing versus the other way of creating these. And it does involve taking apart a lot of seams and putting them back together again. It involves putting elastic in. If you can't do this, I would definitely suggest to find a local seamstress or tailor that will do it for you. They won't charge you too much, and they'll also give you a really polished finish on them. But even if you want to do it, it is possible by hand. It's a little time consuming, but in my opinion, it's definitely worth the time to create a really cool look. Okay guys, I guess there's nothing left for me to say other than I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if there's any others you'd like to see from me, let me know in the comments. Other than that, bye and hopefully see you soon.